Hello, everyone. I'm Monica Rojas-Stewart. I'm the Assistant Director of the African Studies and the Latin American Caribbean Studies programs at the Jackson School of International Studies at the University of Washington. But I'm also a Seattle-based Peruvian performing artist, and I'm involved in lots of community arts program, and that's what brings me to a personal, very personal interest in this project called Many Messiahs. It is my real pleasure to be here today to talk about a very unique program that is coming to Mini Hall this December. And I have also the honor to be sitting here with three of the artists. So before we get into Many Messiahs itself, I would like to ask the three artists here to introduce themselves and talk about a little bit about their role in Many Messiahs. Maybe we start with Taina.
Of course. Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Monica. My name is Taina Asili. I'm coming to you from Albany, New York, which is on unceded Haudenosaunee and Mohawk territory. And I am a Puerto Riqueña artist that has dedicated my lifetime career to the work of love and liberation. So creating music, utilizing the tools of many different genres, including some of the roots of my own cultural upbringing to uplift themes of love and liberation, social justice, that are informed by the activism that I've been involved in for the past 25 years for racial, gender, and climate justice. And I am so honored to be a part of Many Messiahs. I believe the first way that I got connected with Many Messiahs was through an email. It was a cold email that I received from Aaron Grad, who introduced me to this concept, this idea of Many Messiahs. I think Aaron had seen a music video that I had done for an organization called 1 Billion Rising. That's an organization that works internationally to end gender-based violence. And I had written their most recent anthem. And I believe Aaron had seen that and was inspired to reach out to me to be a part of this project. And I know we'll share a little bit more about what our roles are. I am a singer, I'm a composer, and an artist, all-around artist, using all elements of creativity that I have access to. So that's what I infuse into this work, and we'll share a little bit more later on about what that looks like.
Well, maybe we go next with Sonny.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, my name is Sonny Singh. I am based in Brooklyn, New York, land of the Lenape and Canarsie people. I am a trumpet player, singer, songwriter, and have been working in a lot of different musical spaces for the last few decades. I came up in the ska and reggae scene as a teenager, and that was one of my early inspirations that still seeps into a lot of the music that I make. I've been a part of a band called Red Barath for the last 15 years and have toured the world with that band and still continue to tour with that band, which mixes sort of Punjabi Bhangra music with jazz and funk and rock, really a joyful sort of celebratory form of uplifting music. And I also channel a lot of Sikh devotional and sort of Punjabi folk music in the music that I make. And that's probably most relevant to what I'm bringing to the Many Messiahs project. I put out my first solo record last year called Chardi Kala, which is the Sikh concept of revolutionary eternal optimism, which in many ways I see as sort of my North Star of the art and music and activism that I make, right? To what is my role in lifting our spirits and helping myself and others hold their heads up high and stay determined in our struggles for justice and liberation. That sort of ancestral wisdom that keeps me going. And so through my music and my activism, I try to sort of pay that forward. And so part of what I bring to Many Messiahs as a singer, trumpet player, and a composer, co-composer of some of the pieces is some of that Sikh devotional wisdom that intersects with some of the themes in Many Messiahs. And it's been a really inspiring and really unique process, unlike anything I've been involved with before.
Thank you very much. Darian, please.
Well, I can't top those two amazing intros. So I'm Darian Dachaun, actor, writer, musician, African-American actor, writer, musician. I'm currently here in Los Angeles, California, City of Angels, land of the Chumash people. I am a storyteller that likes to tell stories to influence and expand perceptions of a more equitable society. I do that through various mediums that include theater, music, and digital media. My work is often humorous, high concept, high energy, with progressive undertones of social justice, primarily in the field of speculative fiction. And as a musician, I'm the front runner for a band called the Mighty Third Whale, where I work with a violinist and a upright bass player, and we have kind of traveled all over the country as a hip hop poetry band, where I infuse poetry with hip hop and jazz. And yeah, in terms of my role in Many Messiahs, I'm doing a lot of the verses, the rap verses, and the beatboxing and all that good stuff.
Thank you very much. I'm going to read a little blurb that tries to explain what Many Messiahs is. So, what happens when artists, activists from widely different backgrounds and musical worlds unite around the fight for racial justice? And what if they link their original songs together by sampling and quoting a piece of classical music that's almost 300 years old? Riffing on Handel's masterpiece Messiah, these musicians transform an ancient tale of a savior into an urgent call to action. The way they frame it, we are all the many messiahs who can build a better world together starting now. This is amazing, amazing statement. So in this next round, maybe we can follow the same order, but the question is, if you could please go more in depth about how did you become involved in this project? What attracted you to it to say, yes, I'm gonna be part of this?
Yeah. Well, I shared a little bit about my first introduction to the project. Why I said yes is an interesting question. I grew up as a young child. I played violin, I sang, and my introduction to music in school was through European classical music. I was trained from the age of 14 through my early 20s in opera. And I loved Handel's work. I love that music. But in my life, I hadn't found a place for myself, my whole self, to really integrate my whole self into that world, into that that style of music. And so as I moved on in my career and in my musical journeys, that side of myself sort of got left behind. So in recent years, I have been thinking about what it would look like to bring elements of that training and that experience into today. And it just so happened that Aaron, the grad, had emailed me right as I was ripe in thought around that. My sister is a vocalist. She's an amazing jazz vocalist. And she had just done a collaboration with the Binghamton Philharmonic doing songs by Nina Simone. And she had done this incredible collaboration. And I was so inspired. And it really happened, I think, only a few weeks before Aaron had contacted me. So it just felt like the right time to consider what that exploration might look like. And I think Aaron's proposal was to bring my whole self to this, to really see this as a collaboration where I could bring all of the different voices that I carry within me, and that centering of love and liberation, and bring that to this work and see what emerged. So I was intrigued by that possibility.
Thank you so much, Sonny.
Yeah, that's so fascinating, Taina. I love hearing how you came into this, and a lot of it really resonates with how and why I came into it as well. I also got a mysterious email from someone named Aaron Grad as the initial point of connection and outreach. And this was a couple of years ago, before my solo album had come out, but I'd put out a single or two at that point, and I think Aaron somehow found one of those songs and music videos. And yeah, and I was immediately drawn into the idea for a number of reasons. First and foremost, because of the centering of racial justice in the concept, and the content of and sort of the mission of the project, as well as this mission of kind of reclaiming the orchestra hall, reclaiming the classical music space, and really challenging dynamics of racism and sort of white normativeness in the classical music world, and to be sort of approached by a white man in that world, doing some deep self-reflection around that, and really wanting to engage in a collaborative process, not an extractive process. I was, to be perfectly honest, I was a little bit suspicious at first, but through our first couple of conversations, his sincerity and his real desire to be truly collaborative partners in a way that wasn't tokenizing us as songwriters and musicians and composers of color, but really thinking about how do we collectively push the envelope in this classical music space and ask more of this space to really make it a more inclusive space for all of our communities. And in a way similar to Taina, he was also really inviting me to bring my whole self to the table. And so what that meant at that particular point in time, and still at this current point in time, is I was in a process at that time of starting to revisit Sikh devotional music, which was my first musical outlet as a child, but I'd never really come back to it as a professional musician, and various things happening in the world sort of started pushing me to that trajectory, which led to the musical project that I focus a lot of my time on now, my solo project. And here we are with this idea of using Handel's Messiah, which is most certainly rooted in a lot of religious text, in the Christian tradition, which is not a tradition that I'm a part of. But it felt like an opportunity to really think about the role of faith in our movements for justice, and how that comes out through music. Because in the Sikh community, music is so central to how we worship, and part of how we worship is by being freedom fighters. That's a part of our tradition. That's a part of what it means to be a Sikh. And so that just felt so in line with the concept of sort of this racial justice reimagining of Handel's Messiah, and even sort of reimagining of what is a Messiah, right? And this idea of a Messiah as one who fights for justice and liberation for all people.
Thank you. Darian.
I love all that, and I love that it all starts with a mysterious email. So once again, Aaron Grad. I think I was actually the first artist that Aaron reached out to, and it was kind of post. It was still very much kind of in it was post George Floyd. So I think that Aaron kind of reached out to me, kind of very a bit raw about where the world was, and really wanting to, having a strong desire to Sonny talked a little bit about shaking up the classic world, but also really wanting to be able to do a piece that really leaned into social justice. And Aaron felt like Handel's Messiah could do it, and I was interested in it because I had did a piece with a quartet called Public Quartet. They're 2-time Grammy nominated, and we did a piece a few years back on Ligeti's Metamorphosis Nocturne, where I was combining kind of hip hop with classical music. And in general, I'm a person that's really into, as a hip hop artist, of combining the familiar with something new. That I love being able to kind of blend genres and music, and I'm particularly I tend to have a cinematic lens, and orchestration and symphony and classic music has always been something that I'm drawn to. So I did this piece with my good friend and collaborator, 3-time Grammy-nominated Curtis Stewart, who's also in Many Messiahs. And so we had worked on a piece before. And so when Aaron reached out to me about doing something on Handel's Messiah, it felt like it was almost an extension of that. And it felt like such a great challenge to see how we can really think of Jesus not per se as, you know, the savior, but more as really looking at Jesus as the revolutionary, as the activist, and how the way Jesus lived, how that kind of connects with the way activists kind of exist today in modern society. So in a lot of ways, for me, it's the piece is an ode to activism, and that's the way that I approach the work.
Great, thank you so much. And some of you already touched on the next question, but maybe you would like to add something else regarding how you actually approached Handel's Messiah as a jumping off point for your own work. And if you were familiar with it before you began, and what was your what was your process in creating your piece?
Yeah, I was familiar to some degree, but certainly not in the way that I am today. I approached it, when I listened, I started by thinking about what was resonating with me, so the first song that I worked on was How Beautiful Are the Feet of Them. And, I listened to sort of melodic phrases that resonated with me, what words were resonating with me. And I used those places as the jumping off point to write. So in that song, for example, I thought about this idea of the body, different parts of the body as metaphors for how we move through thinking about different aspects of social justice, of racial justice. What do our hands represent? What do our feet represent? What do our eyes represent, right? So thinking about using that idea of the metaphor of the body as a beginning place to explore liberation concepts. So that was what I did with that one. And with that one, I used a Cuban 3/4 rhythm, thinking about ways that we could move the piece differently, right? And so that was really fun to collaborate with Aaron, thinking about different rhythmic possibilities in that exploration as well.
Well, first of all, I vaguely knew Messiah. I haven't really played much classical music since I was in high school. Not my forte, but vaguely familiar. Had heard elements of it before. So definitely a lot of listening, and also melodic resonance and lyrical resonance. And just a quick example of how one piece that I wrote came about. There's a movement in, I don't know what are they called, movements, pieces within the Messiah, called sort of "Great Was the Company of the Preachers" is the lyric. And it got me thinking about this idea of Sangat in the Sikh community, which is this idea of a beloved community. Sort of like who we surround ourselves by is just so important to how we move forward as a people. And then there's several sort of Sikh devotional poems in our literature that talk about this concept of the beloved community of the Sangha. So I use that as the kind of concept for the piece. So there's certain melodic elements that are almost identical to Handel, and then there's a bunch of musical content that's totally different, as well as some verses taken from the Guru Granth Sahib, taken from Sikh devotional poetry.
Yeah, I think for me, it was definitely like a deep dive. I think like Sonny, I didn't know a ton about Handel's Messiah other than Hallelujah, which we all know. And so it was great to do a real deep dive, really looking at the lyrics and what kind of resonated with me from there, but also sonically what resonated with me. And again, as a hip hop artist, what I was doing is I would take like samples of something that I heard and then kind of loop that, and then, give it some kind of some hip hop drums, and then, finding kind of the verses from there. And for me, it was a lot about, what does it mean to be an activist? What is the price of being an activist? And the importance of being an activist, and really thinking about almost like a story or a journey of, an activist on a path that has power and pain and progress, and all those things are on the journey of what it means to be an activist. And some books that I kind of looked at while I was creating the piece, the songs, The Politics of Jesus was one of them. John Lewis's 3-part graphic novel March was great, and another book called Activist Portraits of Courage. So I kind of was looking at those three as influences to inspire the work and the lyrics and the music.
Thank you for that round. Wow, amazing. And this is the last question. So what will the audience actually experience? How do you hope many messiahs will be received by the audiences who experience it when they go to Mini Hall this December?
I'll jump in. I think if anything, we wouldn't be doing our job if it isn't some form of call to action. So I think it's important that people feel motivated. I want the piece should really boost group morale. We're in very dark times right now, so whatever that means, I know that we want the piece to hopefully uplift people and to feel like they have some agency. So I know that Aaron and I have talked about, whatever that call is afterwards for whatever organizations you want to support, or if there are rallies that are happening within Seattle. I think the goal is to have some options for people to take hopefully all this positive energy that we're going to create in December and have people actually do something with it. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yes to all of that. For me, music and art in general is the way that we move. When we're thinking about concepts of social justice, about racial justice, a lot of times we get locked into our heads, right? But music offers us that ability to move into our hearts and into our spirits. And so I think the invitation and the expectation is that audiences will move on that emotional journey. They're going to experience an emotional journey that might be different from an emotional journey that they've gone on in that space before.
I guess the only thing I'll add is that just aesthetically and musically and creatively, I don't think there's anything even remotely like this. It's definitely going to be, hopefully it works, but it is very unique. The combination of people who are going to be up on stage, the combination of musical languages, literal languages that we are speaking and singing in, different traditions. I mean, in conversation with Handel's Messiah, this is uncharted territory, and and I think that's really exciting, and it's something, you know, that I'm honored to be a part of, and I'm excited to see how it lands. Like I'm curious for you to ask the audience that question at the end of the night on December 16th.
Well, thank you so much to each one of you for giving us a little bit of your time to share about this amazing project. Shout out to Aaron Grad for his dreams and this amazing initiative. I cannot wait for Many Messiahs, and I cannot wait to see you all at Mini Hall this December. Thank you so much.